I would like to let you know that this presentation is more of a collaborative conversation because I think all of us have experienced this virtual world very quickly. It came upon us, and I think we learned a lot. So I think that whatever I'm sharing with you, you've probably already experienced, and probably have much to share about it. So I think that this is a way for all of us to share a collectiveness and also share maybe some of the things that we are currently doing. Let me know by hand signals or anything that if you can't hear me, if things are breaking up or you can't see what's happening. So, oh, I keep using this other mouse and I'm on a different computer. I have two computers in front of me. Okay. So I like to start off my presentations usually with an icebreaker. So I'm going to put something on the screen, and it is, so while you're reading this sentence, I will say that what I would ask you to do is count the number of F's that are a part of this statement or sentence. And I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. That was your couple minutes. So how many of you found 3? You can put it in the chat box if you'd like. How many of you found 3 F's? How many of you found 4 F's? How many of you found 5? And how many of you found 6? Okay. So I'll bring it back up again. And I wish I can bring it back up again. I'm going to take you to the whole presentation. No. So there are 6 F's in this statement. Which F's, and you can come off a mic if you like. I don't know if you have power to unmute yourself, but which F's do you think that we miscounted, that we didn't even count? Got to open up that chat box.
I would say probably, sorry, this is Alexis, probably the F's that are like in the middle of words, I would think are the ones that wouldn't typically be counted.
When I first did it, I only got 3, just so you know. And I missed the ones that were a part of one. Yeah, I missed the ofs. I went right over the ofs. So,
well, and you know, I've seen this before and I still missed them.
Yeah, that happens. When does that happen? So I use this sentence as, not a sentence. I don't know if it's a sentence or a statement. I mean, you let me know. The teacher's on board here, you know. But I use this because it's all really about perception and how, you know, maybe what we're thinking. You know, there's a lot of stuff that go into, you know, what we're seeing, and it's basically on perception. And none of us were wrong. There were 3 F's, and there were 4 F's, and there were 5 F's, and there were 6 F's. So it wasn't that we were wrong. It's just that some of us missed it, you know, depending on where your mind was at the time. So it's a great segue into how we all perceived COVID when it first hit and our lives were kind of changed. So for my department, the parenting department, we do home visitings, and we go into the home and provide parenting education to families who are at risk for child abuse or neglect. Some of our parenting workers do provide parenting education to families who are a part of the CPS system, and that is called preventative services. So we would do supervised visits with the family and the child. And we can also, and we do education as well. So our hopes are that the family will be reunified, right? And for the voluntary program of Healthy Families, the objective is that if we're in the home, we are reducing child abuse and neglect, and we're in the home prior to something happening. So we're in the home when the parent is pregnant or the child is less than 3 months of age. So COVID, during this period, March 16th through the 18th, our agency and our programs made a quick shift to home visiting, going totally virtual. And what came with that was that we had to create quick policies and procedures on what was working from home going to look like. I know for many of the staff and people here at the agency, working from home is like the dream ideal, right? Um, for me, working from home under any other condition means that I wake up about 6, I might go to the gym, go for a walk, come back home, start my day. On my lunch period, maybe I'll go out to lunch with a friend or something like that. So working from home ideally would have looked like that for me had I not had this COVID situation. We'll call it a situation now. And it would have been very glamorous. But at this point, it was working from home, and there was nothing else I can do. I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't, you would think, oh, well, in that time I can go pick up my child from school, or I could do this, or I could do a little shopping, and then I could get back to work. There's this whole idea of how it should look like. But it didn't look that way, and it was more or less forced on everyone. We ran into some issues. We had to create an IT policy on what it looks like to work from home. We had to get IT to get everybody up and running. And that was, a task for the IT department. And then for us, it was a way we had to figure out the family's needs when it came to IT. Some of our families didn't have even a phone that was capable of doing virtual visits. And then families were using platforms that were not HIPAA approved. So, they were either using Google Home or Facebook Messenger or Facebook or Zoom. And our agency policy was to use GoToMeeting. And that was a little difficult to engage our family. So it became a matter of that we were having to make some decisions on providing support to our family and meeting their needs, opposed to meeting some kind of standard, a HIPAA standard. So we had to make some decisions so that we can stay in contact with families. Another thing that came up was safety. And safety came up in a variety of areas. When it came to how do we drop off things to our families and they have needs like PPE or even food supplies, because in the beginning, like, things were scarce. And so I, as the director, had to make a decision to go to Aldi's and try to get as much food as I can to distribute to families, with there being a limit on the amount of food that I can buy. So my safety was also there, and I had to practice some PPI and some precautions. The other thing that we thought about was the isolation for our families. And for some of our families, that were living in rural areas and there was nothing out there to support them, the isolation was felt very hard. Not only did, this is the first time I would say that our participants and us as providers were almost on the same playing field. We were isolated as well as workers. You're used to coming in and having a full day and working with um, your peers and having conversation and things like that. And we became isolated. For some of us, it was just, for me in my home, it was just me, my husband, and my daughter. Um, and for other people, it was just them because their other family members couldn't come over. So there was an isolation that was happening with everyone. And I think that this COVID pandemic taught us a lot about what we were experiencing as an agency and an organization, but also what our families were experiencing. And there was like no division between the both of us. So I'm going to move on to the next one. And the next one is a conversation that, I would like to start. Like I said, this isn't a collaborative presentation. This is not just me talking here. So I'm sure you can unmute your mics and share 2 things you've learned during this time about yourself, your community, and how has what you learned supported the way you virtually engage. Anyone can go first.
Natasha, I will jump out here because I know how it feels to be in your position and you hear crickets.
I take that as they're loving my presentation.
They absolutely are, because it is a beautiful presentation. So the 2 things that probably during this period I appreciate is that the resilience of our early childhood field to stop and pivot, to adjust for the needs of the children. As far as the families, I'm a facilitator, do all the pyramid training area, but I think I've also learned that not only for the early childhood field has been very flexible, is that the families have been very flexible, realizing it's going to look different when they go back into the classrooms, and very appreciative of the staff that have been watching their children in the past. I believe a new appreciation, an increased appreciation for them.
Natasha, you're muted, honey.
2 computers in front of me, sorry. Marilyn, I was a part of your parent training a while ago. It was in person, just so you know. And anyone else could share some of their experience?
Yeah, I'll say that I really learned a lot about my need for other people. So really thinking about that isolation aspect you were talking about. I've always called myself an extroverted introvert. I like my me time, but I also really love other people. So that, and I've seen that kind of echoed in our participants too. I've also learned that there is such a thing as too much screen time. And so as we're building all these supports and programming, a lot of our participants, and myself included, are really like zoomed out and programmed out, and trying to find ways to help support them in engaging in that a little bit better.
Anyone else? Can anyone else share?
Sure, Natasha, I'll share. So I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is how to be flexible. In this time, right now I actually have my camera off so that I have a better connection. So I apologize, I'm not showing my real face right now. But it is been a very real experience to see how you have to learn new things and teach yourself new skills while still trying to support your team members in the same thing, because we need each other. And I don't think I realized how much we need each other. But it's been a really humbling experience.
Thank you, April. April is from the Healthy Families Program. Anyone else? I have someone in the chat box that said, my apologies, no mic. Being a home visitor myself, I have learned that the program works for a reason. I learned that the face-to-face engagement and being physically in the home is what is so special about a parenting education home visiting program. That is, oh, that's so beautiful. I agree with Alexis. I have considered myself an introvert extrovert. I was excited in the beginning, but quickly it dragged. I can see that, yeah.
I'll share. I think the one thing, because my primary responsibility at work is working with school districts and looking at family engagement indicators and early childhood. Excuse the background noise. I, like everybody else, am home with pets and children. But the consistent phrase of, we have learned that we can do everything virtual, that our jobs can be virtual. But I kind of disagree, because very much, and echoing what Alexis has said, being somebody with both a background in special education and social work, being with people is kind of what has ignited our passion for our job. And I think that even as much as we're trying with the virtual aspect, I'm really kind of missing that, especially watching the struggles of family engagement, you know, and trying to address those needs of families when that was already an additional barrier for families between home and school. So I just, for myself, I find, you know, how I can support that virtually is, I think, more linkage and referral and being present with families a little bit more, to be in their homes at different times of the day. But I think for me, it's a struggle really to virtually engage still.
Katie, what kind of supports would you suggest that we maybe develop, or what we might need going forward?
I don't have that answer as very much as I didn't in my whole regional wide meeting today that looked at all of our districts that needed some assistance. I think the formation of family groups has been really helpful for families, especially like Facebook groups. I know, like, as our agency in particular, you know, we've converted a lot of our stuff to virtual, but I just feel it still misses that in-person component. So, I mean, I think that the family groups has been helpful, but I don't know, for me personally, I'm still struggling with the virtual, so.
I agree with her in some terms. My name is Millie. I'm with Head Start. It has been difficult for my teachers. We have 2 virtual learners, and I think the struggle, like she said, is not being there with the children, but also what we're giving them to do. Like how much to give the parents to do, how much to get the parents to get engaged. You know, they're working too, either from home or going out. And also, like, what kind of program or what kinds of things can we give the parents that's going to work? I mean, obviously we ask them, but we don't always get the answers from them. And yeah, it's just a struggle. And then sometimes when you try to put so much out there, you get, well, I can't really do this, or I don't want to do this, or it's just not working. And you know, you try to say, well, that's okay. Take it a little bit at a time. You don't have to do all of this stuff that we're handing out at one time. You know, so those are the things that are still kind of a struggle too for us.
I think, Millie, it sounds like that collaboration, that this is the first time that teachers had to
Yes.
to work with parents, right? And this is the first time that parents had to work with teachers for one cause, and that is the child. and and to lend to Katie and everyone else's input, that screen time is not like, who has, like, I get tired being on the screen. And I can't imagine, and I think that when we're doing virtual, there's really a time limit. And I don't know if that time limit, like the sweet spot is 20 minutes, but I don't think it can go any further. Even I've been on, virtual calls or meetings that ran an hour and over, and they lost me at some point. I come back, but they lose me. And another thing is, I multitask when I'm on this screen now. It's not like when I'm in front of you, I'm more or less polite and I'm not going to get on my phone. But I'm virtual, I'm going to be on my email, I'm going to be sending messages, I'm going to be on my phone, because my focus, this is a new way for me to focus. And the damage that it's doing on our eyes. Your eyes are literally tired. Your neck, you're in a new position all day. You're like this, okay? I hope I modeled it well for you guys, but you're like this all day long. And I go to the chiropractor every week, and I can tell you that she says that there's so many people coming in with this tightness in the back of their neck and their shoulders and the eye pain and the headache. And this is not good. We have to definitely find a sweet spot for all of this, and try to collaboratively work together. Katie also said, I don't mean to poo-poo on this. I am struggling with finding additional advantages to virtual work.
Apologies, Natasha, because I know you and I are in the group together.
Yes,
with
yes.
I have so much respect for you as a professional. I just really am struggling today. I just think that that's speaking my own truth right now, and sitting through our regional meeting today, and people continually ask me what effective community engagement is all day long, and I was like, I don't even know anymore. As we sit and watch that we're orange now, what does that mean for families? How do I explain that to families? And then just listening to professionals identify so many of those barriers, and it's like we already had a moat, and now we've just built an additional wall with crocodiles around it, and I just hear it from professionals. And yes, there are positives. I do love being with my family. I do love the fact that I'm with my family at home, but I don't want to poo-poo, because Natasha, as another facilitator, you're rocking it, especially with all the technical glitches that we've had. So keep kicking butt, but I just, sorry, I couldn't conceal it today.
You know what, Katie, I so appreciate you sharing that, because again, like I said in the beginning, this is a collaborative presentation. This is just not my presentation. This is our presentation. And I think that one of the things that I want to show, that there is a purpose to how I'm modeling this, and it is trying to keep you engaged. That's pretty difficult, right? Because like you said, Katie, you've been in the virtual world all day, and you've been hearing these all day. How do I continue to engage you? Just like children, just like parents, I've been going through this all day, and I don't want to look at one more person, or I don't even want to respond. I don't have anything to say, right? And this is the greatest platform for people to be voiceless. If we want people to continue to be quiet, this is the best way to do it. We are losing our voice, people. Let me not get on my soapbox. We are losing our voice. So I encourage you, let's keep talking, even if you got to say what you have to say, Katie, because that was beautifully said, because we can all feel that. I can understand completely. So if anybody else has something that they learned about themselves in their community, we'll go on to the next slide, and I'll show you some of the things that you guys already said. So, I don't know what I did to this PowerPoint, but okay. So the lessons learned for us in the parenting department, March through May, is that there are always ways to engage families. We are moving forward in our continuous support of families. We can bring life back into our toolbox. One of those toolbox life skill kind of tools that I use virtually is silence. We don't think of silence as a tool, but it is. Gives you enough time to allow people to feel uncomfortable enough to talk. So that's one of our tools that we brought back to life. There are some tools that we haven't been using as much that we can use during this time. And we learned from our families during this shared experience because we're learning from them as well. Again, like I'm learning from all of you because we are definitely sharing this. This is a collectiveness. We are learning to be comfortable with our discomfort with new technology. COVID is also impacting other service providers. Empathy is important at all levels of communication. Our families miss us, and we matter to them. Appreciation of what our families' jobs are and the little things in our own life. So what we found out is that the families that we serve, that they were the one working at the grocery stores. And they were the ones doing the stuff that there was nobody else going to do, working at those restaurants that we were ordering food still during that time. So they were doing the jobs that everyone else wasn't doing. They were our CNAs. They were working in, the medical fields, our HHAs, and those are our frontline people. We here at the agency, we had our resource workers and support workers who worked in our homes, and our domestic violence shelter that worked in our homeless shelter for children. So these people were still working. Not these people, I don't want to say it like that because I was still working too, but just not in the same way. How creative and innovative we can be, we learned that. A heightened awareness of mental health of our families, ourselves, and the children we serve. Some may also not be as stressed due to the relaxed requirements from the courts. One of the things is that we do have families that had to attend a lot of things because of court mandates, and now they're a little more relaxed because they didn't have to do it at that time, and it was limited. So opportunities to think about relationships with their family and how some of them are unhealthy. So this time also gave us a time to think about our own health and the health of our families and how we were taking. I don't know how many of you changed your diet when you were in quarantine, but I kind of did that. Those who need more socialization before are struggling more. We realized that too, that isolation did that. And those who enjoyed solitude were doing okay. Those people that were used to being by themselves were having a great time. And one thing that Katie said, too much screen time and phone time as staff. More relapse in occurring during this time, and we're talking about substance abuse. There was a heightened relapse, and also in mental health as well. Loss of routine has impacted families, and their consistent intervention services were not coming around. So those early interventions and counseling services, they were not happening anymore. So, and some service providers were offering or are limited and had no services. So they were on their own when it came to some of the services. And we have something in the chat box, so I will get to it. I think we're supposed to be back in the main room. I don't know, are we? If it's there.
Lynette sent an email out saying we were supposed to rejoin at 4:30 or 4:20.
Okay, so.
Yeah, wants us back in the main room, Natasha.
All right, I did have some strategies for you, Katie. I really did. So I wasn't going to leave you without any tools. And if you'd like, hopefully they can send this PowerPoint to you, but there were some strategies for, and there's a link down there that talks about how routine benefits your mental health and the health of the child and things like that. And this is a good point. So in the middle of your sessions with families and children, doing a quick check-in is really going to keep your family engaged. And that quick check-in could be a text message that says, how are things going from our last session? Those things right there will help you stay engaged with families and increase that engagement. So I did have tools, and strategies we could have talked about, but another time. And Katie, we're in the same class, right? Yeah, so